J.D. Vance has made the news again by saying something that's common sense to all of human history, except for 5 minutes ago, again.
Yes.
You know, as I listened to them and I watched Selena Gomez, that viral video.
Oh, my Lord.
You know,
That was embarrassing.
Now, I've talked to the family, as did President Trump. I know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did not. I talked to Laken Riley's family.
Yep.
I talked to Rachel Morin's family, mother of five.
Yep.
I talked to Jocelyn Nungary's mother and grandfather. And I'm like, where were the tears when a little 13-year-old girl
Absolutely.
was brutalized and murdered, and all these other Americans murdered and raped and victims of violent crime?
Yeah.
Where were the tears then?
It's a great point, Sean. And there's something very deranged in the mind of the far left in this country where I really do think that they feel more of a sense of compassion for illegal aliens who have no right to be in this country than they do their fellow citizens. And that really has to change. And, you know, when Selena Gomez had her viral moment, and of course there were a lot of other celebrities who weighed in, I had people sending me photos of little kids, sometimes kids the same age as my little children. We've got, of course, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old.
It was a great scene, by the way, when
Thank you.
your son's playing with your hair.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But you know, kids similar age to my children who were murdered by criminal aliens in the United States of America. And as an American leader, but also just as an American citizen, your compassion belongs first to your fellow citizens. It doesn't mean you hate people from outside of your own borders, but there's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country. And then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders. That is no way to run a society.
Facts.
And I think the profound difference that Donald Trump brings to the leadership of this country is the simple concept, America first. It doesn't mean you hate anybody else. It means that you have leadership, and President Trump has been very clear about this, that puts the interests of American citizens first. In the same way that the British Prime Minister should care about Brits and the French should care about the French, we have an American president who cares primarily about Americans, and that's a very welcome change.
And thank God we do. JD was using a lot of common sense there. He was using a lot of what would be, like I said, common sense. If you were talking my grandfather's generation, not even that long, and within my lifetime, that would have been common sense. And I'm only 36 years old. But seeing as how JD said something that was traditionally Christian, all the heretics have come out to play as usual. Politics aside, numerous Christian theologians, took to social media to point out Vice President, who was conservative Catholic, misrepresented the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels. Actually, no, wrote Jesuit priest and author James Martin. This misses the point of Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke 10:25-37. After Jesus tells a lawyer that you should love your neighbors as yourself, the lawyer asks him, "And who is my neighbor?" In response, Jesus tells the story of a Jewish man who had been beaten by robbers and is lying by the side of the road. The man is helped not by those closest to him, a priest or a Levite in this case, but rather by a Samaritan. At the time, Jews and Samaritans would have considered one another enemies. Sounds good, right? No, wrong. This is the problem with that. It's a false equivalency, for one. Here's why it's a false equivalency. In this passage, the Good Samaritan is not being forced to choose between helping this man and, say, helping his wife or helping his daughter and something in that vein. This is simply a man who is traveling, who is a Samaritan, who sees an opportunity to help someone else in general. There's no choice to be made here between a loved one of this man and this person on the side of the road. It's just simply, do I help this person on the side of the road? So it's a false equivalency to use in J.D. Vance's statement. But since y'all want to pull out Bibles and everything, let's pull them out. Matthew 12, you know this one. So Matthew 12, I'll start at 46. Matthew 12:46. While he was still speaking to the crowds, behold, his mother and brothers were standing outside, seeking to speak to him. Someone said to him, "Look, your mother and brothers are standing outside, seeking to speak to you." But Jesus replied to the one who was telling him and said, "Who is my mother and who is my brothers?" And extending his hand towards his disciples, he said, "Behold, my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he is my brother and sister and mother." Now you're thinking, see, that only further proves that it's not about who's related to you, right? Who's your brother and sister, who matters. Wrong. Jesus is saying in this moment, these people at the door, Mary and James, his brothers, they are only related to him through flesh in that regard. Jesus is saying his disciples, who have become his spiritual brothers, are closest to him now because they now serve the same God and serve his Father. That's what Jesus is saying. But notice, but understand what's being said. Jesus is not doing away with the principle of serving those closest to you first. He's doubling down on it, because in this example, the people who are spiritually closer to him are the people that he is saying takes precedence over the people who are just merely physically related to him. So he's not throwing out the whole notion that there isn't a hierarchy on who you should help or who you should take care of first. He's saying the point that you're missing in this example is the people who are closest to me here are the people who are spiritually my brothers and sisters, not the people who are my flesh and blood, mother and brothers. So the principle still stands. It's just Jesus saying in this situation, these are just the people who are closest, but the order still stands, which is why Mary and James had to wait until Jesus was done. But you're probably thinking, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't know. Okay, because now we're going to jump over to 1 Timothy 5, one of my favorite Bible passages, so you're lucky there. 1 Timothy 5, I'll start from 7 actually. Give these instructions as well, so that they may be above reproach. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Well, gee golly whiz, would you look at that? God is saying, if you don't do right by the people who are in your immediate home and your family members, you are worse. You have denied the faith. And you are worse than an unbeliever. Now, hold on. Now, wait a minute. If J.D. Vance is so wrong, then this Bible verse doesn't make any sense. So you're telling me if I am not taking care of my home, and the ones who are closest to me first, I deny the faith and I'm worse than an unbeliever? But God, what if I'm donating to charities? What if I'm mentoring some, at the Brothers and Sisters Club after work? What if I'm going out and doing some community service time? I volunteered at the Children's Hospital and I was helping some sick kids, God. So I'm still taking care of people. What's the problem? You see, God is a God of order. And the problem that we live in right now in this current era is there is no order. They want the mercy of Jesus Christ without the justice of Jesus Christ. And that doesn't work. That's a false doctrine. The whole point of Jesus coming in the first place was to bridge the gap between mercy and justice. See, the problem that people don't understand is the reason why a lot of these theologians are confused is because they don't serve the real Jesus Christ. They serve what I call hippie Jesus. What's hippie Jesus, you may ask? Oh, it's only the version of Jesus you've heard about over the past 50 to 60 years. Love is love, man. Just let people love who they want to love. It's not hurting anybody. Why do you care? I don't think that Jesus would want people to not feel love, even if it's with a man and a man. You don't understand. You're oppressive, right? Hippie Jesus is basically all the compassion, love, understanding, and meet you where you are, tolerant Jesus, without the wrath of God, without the Jesus who went in and drove the people out the temples with a whip, without the Jesus who was a part of Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed. Yes, Jesus was there in the Old Testament. He was right there. In fact, he was even one of the people who was actually talking to Lot but that's a whole other story for another day. You see, hippie Jesus is the Jesus that people love because hippie Jesus requires no change from you. It requires you to not be accountable for your actions. And ultimately it allows you to say that you believe in something higher than yourself while still acting as if you're your own God. You see, because you don't see a problem with something doesn't mean that it's not a problem. And that's a problem. Hey, yeah, that was cool. I always say one of my favorite quotes that I came up with. I'm going to make a shirt, by the way, so look out for that. But I always say, either you can be God, or you can let God be God, but you both can't be God. But let me know what you guys think of the video. And JD Vance, I'm starting to like JD Vance a lot more. The more and more I hear him talk as a Christian man, traditional family values. Hey, 2028 looking bright already. But let me know what you guys think. Please like and subscribe and drop a comment below. Do you think JD Vance, his comments were Christian based, or do you think it was off the mark? Let me know below. Until next time, God bless. Peace.